Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Leadership Unscripted, where we have real conversations about leadership, people, systems, character, and impact. Tonight's conversation is called The Leader Everyone Wants to Follow. Let me begin with a difficult truth. A title can make people obey you. A position can make people report to you. A policy can force people to complete a task. But none of those things can make people genuinely believe in you. They cannot force people to trust you. They cannot force people to give you their creativity. They cannot force people to bring to you their best ideas. And they certainly cannot force people to follow you when following you becomes difficult. Some leaders have authority but very little influence. Other leaders may not have the highest title in the room, but when they speak, people listen. When they move, people move. When they face difficulty, people stand beside them. Why? What is the difference? Tonight, I am going to argue that the leader everyone wants to follow does one thing differently. What is that one thing? That leader earns trust by making people feel seen, heard, valued, and secure in their leadership. Let me go again. I'm going to argue tonight that the leader everyone wants to follow does one thing differently. That leader earns trust by making people feel seen, heard, valued, and secure in their leadership. Welcome everyone to the live. Please share it if you're just joining. Not flattered, not spoiled, not protected from accountability, but respected as human beings. Let us begin with a poll. Which leader would you rather work with? Leader A is highly intelligent, results-driven, decisive, and demanding. The organization performs well, but staff are afraid to speak honestly around this leader. Leader B has high expectations, but listens, explains decisions, accepts constructive disagreement, and treats people consistently. Type A or B in the chat. Which leader would you want to follow? Is it leader A? Leader A is highly intelligent, result-driven, decisive, and demanding. The organization performs well, but staff are afraid to speak honestly around this leader. Leader B, on the other hand, has high expectations, but listens, explains decisions, accepts constructive disagreement, and treats people consistently. Which leader would you follow? Or which leader would you rather to work with? I see Lord Sweet says leader B. So Lord Sweet prefer rather to work with a leader with high expectations, but that leader listens, explain decisions, and accept constructive disagreements, and also treat people consistently. Welcome next. Thank you for joining the live. Our topic for tonight, the leader everyone wants to follow. That is our topic for tonight. The leader everyone wants to follow. So Lord Spirit, thank you for choosing B. But would you still choose B if leader A produced better short-term results? Would you still choose B if leader A produced better short-term results. Another question I want you to think about. Can a leader be effective if people fear them? And can fear produce results? Those are some questions I want you to ponder on. Can a leader be effective if people fear them? And can fear produce results? Some will say yes, fear can produce results. But here is the deeper question. Can fear produce sustainable excellence? Can fear produce sustainable excellence? Fear may create compliance. Fear may create silence. Thank you, Oris, for joining. Fear may create temporary urgency. But fear rarely creates loyalty, creativity, ownership, honesty, or healthy commitment. So while fear may give you short-term results, and it may create compliance, it creates silence. But if people fear you as a leader, you will not get their loyalty. You will not experience the creative side of those who are around you. They will not take ownership of things in the organization. They will not be able to speak honestly to you. And those healthy commitment, you will not get them if people fear you. So I want you to type one word in the comment. Because I'm not going to sit here and talk to myself. I want you to type one word in the comment. What does fear eventually produce in a team? Let me give you one. What does fear eventually produce in a team? First one is burnout. Because you fear the leader, everything they throw at you, you do. You're afraid to say no. You are afraid to say that's enough, I cannot manage anymore. Because of fear. So what does fear eventually produce in a team? Nick says poor communication. Excellent. When people fear you as a leader, they will not speak up. You will not hear their thought. Even when they know that the decision you just made is wrong. And it's not the best decision. They will remain silent. They will not say anything. Because they know, they're afraid of what the outcome might be. The poor communication is a good one. What about resentment? When people fear you as a leader, eventually they start to resent you. What about dishonesty? When people fear you as a leader, they start to pad results to please you. Because they don't want you to see them fail. Because they are afraid of what the outcome might be. Nick says creativity is also stifled. So true. Creativity will be stifled. Turnover will be high. People will be leaving that organization the first chance they get. A lot of mistakes will be made. Because people will be afraid to ask for clarity. Disengagement will be high. But one of the most profound one that is a result of fear is resistance. Resistance. So people may remain physically present while emotionally leaving the organization. Another thing I want to talk to you about tonight. There's a major difference between being followed because people have to and being followed because people want to. There's a major difference. When people have to follow you, they usually give you the minimum required for the role. They're not going to give you their all. When people want to follow you, they often give you discretionary effort. That means they contribute beyond the job description. When people want to follow you, they contribute beyond the job description. They bring ideas. They solve problems. They tell you the truth before a crisis develops. They protect the organization's reputation. They support one another. They remain committed during uncertainty. Those are the things you will see when people want to follow you. They will solve problems. They will tell you the truth. They'll protect the organization. They will support each other. And they will remain committed during uncertainty. Thank you everyone for joining the Leadership Unscripted tonight. Our topic, the leader everyone wants to follow. And this is why leadership is not simply about directing behavior. Leadership is about creating the conditions in which people willingly contribute. So I want you to be honest with me tonight. Have you ever worked for someone who made you reduce your effort? Be honest, yes or no? Type yes or no. Have you ever worked for someone who made you reduce your effort? I certainly have. Because of how they are, I just gave the minimal. Yes. Welcome MJ to the live. You were capable of more, but you stopped giving your best because of how you were treated. Now let me reverse it. Have you ever worked for someone who made you want to do more than was required because you respected them? Have you ever worked for someone and you want to give that organization your all because you respect the leader? So what was the difference between those two leaders? Some of the difference I'm sure you're thinking about. You trusted that leader. You respected that leader and they respected you. Communication was clear. You weren't afraid to communicate with that leader. Decisions were fair. You felt appreciated. You felt supported. That leader had integrity. And every decisions of accountability remained consistent. And because of those attributes, it made you want to stick around and give of your best. So if you're just joining, our topic for tonight, the leader everyone wants to follow. So here's a story. Here is a story that I want you to listen to and reflect on. Two leaders discover that a major deadline has been missed. Two leaders discover that a major deadline has been missed. Leader 1 enters the meeting and says, "This is unacceptable. I am tired of excuses. I want to know who is responsible." Immediately, everyone becomes defensive. People begin protecting themselves. Information is withheld. Blame moves around the room. The meeting becomes focused on survival. Leader B, on the other hand, enters the room and says, "The deadline was missed, and that is serious. We must take responsibility. Before deciding what happened next, I need us to understand exactly where the process failed, what each person knows, and what must change." The second leader is not avoiding accountability. The leader is creating enough psychological safety for people to tell the truth. That distinction matters. So instead of jumping down people's throat, you try to find, at least I said, firm and fair. Because when you provide that psychological safety, so people doesn't feel as if they have to be defending themselves and defending a job, they will be more open to you, and that honest conversation will happen. That is what you want. And that is how your organization will improve. Good leaders brings out the best in you. However, poor leaders make you afraid. So true, Nix. So true. Weak leaders sometimes confuse intimidation with accountability, while strong leaders understand that accountability requires truth, and people rarely tell the truth in environments where honesty is punished. Let me repeat that. People rarely tell the truth in environments where honesty is punished. So I'm sure most of us would want to work with leader too. So my question to you, should employees feel completely comfortable around their leaders? I want to think about that question. Should employees feel completely comfortable around their leaders? Let me read that again. Should employees feel completely comfortable around their leaders? Let me hear your thoughts on that one. Should employees feel entirely comfortable around their leader?
Don't forget to like the live, share the stream, and invite someone who would benefit from tonight's conversation. Join the Leadership Unscripted community by subscribing to my YouTube channel. You are watching Leadership Unscripted.
So the question is, should employees feel completely comfortable around their leaders? I'm going to go ahead and respond. So my answer to that is no. You don't want your workers to feel the word is completely. You want them to feel comfortable around you, but not completely. Because when the completely comes in, there will be no boundaries, and there needs to be boundaries. Leadership should not remove all discomfort, and that's a fact. Leadership should not remove all discomfort, because growth can be comfortable. Accountability can be uncomfortable. Honest feedback can be uncomfortable. But people should feel safe from humiliation, inconsistency, revenge, favoritism, and unnecessary fear. Let me repeat that. Leadership should not remove all discomfort, because growth, accountability, and honest feedback can be uncomfortable. But people should feel safe from humiliation, inconsistency, revenge, favoritism, and unnecessary fear. So, this book, The Teaching and Learning Leader, Alicia says familiarity diminishes respect a lot of times, so boundaries are necessary. Because when you have those boundaries, you'll be able to hold them accountable and have those difficult conversations. When there are no boundaries, people don't know when to stop or what to say and where to stop. The leadership, there should be boundaries. There need to be boundaries. Now, this is one of the reasons I wrote this book, The Teaching and Learning Leader. So although the book is grounded in educational leadership, its principles apply across organizations, because leadership is always about people, purpose, culture, expectations, and impact. And there's a section in this book I'm going to be reading to you tonight. Short section, just a few sentences from the Teaching and Learning Leader. And the section I'm reading is from page 37. The Evolution of Instructional Leadership. Early research on instructional leadership focused primarily on the role of the principal. The principal was expected to guide teaching and learning within the school. However, as the schools became more complex, it became clear that no single individual could effectively manage all aspects of instructional leadership. As a leader, it is impossible for you to manage everything. Improving teaching across an entire school requires multiple perspectives, expertise, and leadership rules. So it speaks about delegation. It talks about using the people on your team. And if they don't trust you, they won't share their expertise with you. If they don't trust you, they're not going to want to follow your leadership. As a result, many education systems began adopting distributed leadership models. In distributed leadership structures, instructional leadership responsibilities are shared among several individuals. This approach recognizes that improving teaching requires collaboration. For example, a literacy coordinator may guide reading instruction across the school, while a mathematics leader supports teachers in strengthening numeracy teaching. Instructional coaches may work directly with teachers to refine lesson strategies. When leadership is distributed effectively, the school develops greater capacity to improve teaching collectively. What that is saying, as a leader, we spoke about being the leader that everyone wants to follow. People want to follow a leader in an institution where they feel valued, where their expertise, where you consult them for their expertise and you use them. You use their expertise for the betterment of the institution. You don't try to do it all by yourself. You set the standard, yes. You set the standard, but you allow people to drive the different initiatives across the institution. I'm not just talking about school. In any organization, you allow the people on your team to drive the different initiatives across the organization. So leaders should model what they expect, should promote trusting and professional relationships, should influence rather than using positional authority. And if you're on the live last night, we spoke about positional authority, where you use your position to get people to follow you. You use your position to intimidate people. And Pearl says boundaries are very important. Very, very, very important. It talks about listening to those in the organizations, creating a culture where people can improve. Because if people are around you and they're not improving, and they don't see any pathway for improving, they're going to want to look elsewhere. Unless they're not ambitious. But any ambitious person around you, if there's no clear pathway, they're not going to want to stick around. They're going to look elsewhere. And then they want a leader whose leadership is consistent, and also one who supports people while maintaining high standard. Because at no point should you lower your standard, but you support people to meet those standards. So What stands out to me from that section that I just read is that people do not assess leadership only by speeches, policies, strategic plans, or public statements. Thank you, SYM. They ask, does this leader behave consistently? And as a leader, these are the things the people around you, they're asking every day. Does this leader behave consistently? Does this leader listen before deciding? Does this leader apply the rules fairly? Does this leader take responsibility? Does this leader protect people publicly and correct them appropriately? Does this leader do what they ask others to do? And in those questions, credibility is not announced. Credibility is accumulated. The one thing the leader everyone wants to follow does differently is this. And that is our question tonight. What is the one thing the leader everyone does differently? The one thing the leader everyone wants to follow does differently is they consistently communicate that people matter while maintaining clarity about the mission. What did I say? The one thing the leader everyone wants to follow does differently is this. They consistently communicate that people matter while maintaining clarity about the mission. And this is not softness. It is not avoiding standards. It is not allowing poor performance either. It is the ability to hold two truths at the same time. The work matters, yes, and the people doing the work also matter. What did I say? The work matters, but the people doing the work matter as well. Poor leadership often chooses one and neglects the other. Some leaders protect relationships but avoid accountability. Other leaders pursue results but damage people. Strong leaders create accountability within a culture of dignity. And I'm going to give you 4 ways this appears in practice. 4 ways this appears in practice. 1, they listen before they conclude. They do not assume that their first interpretation is always correct. So they ask questions. They seek context. They listen to people closest to the problem. So I want to ask you a question. Which is more difficult for leaders? Speaking clearly or listening without becoming defensive? Which do you think is more difficult for leaders? Is it speaking clearly or listening without becoming defensive? Especially if you're trying to bring across a point, or you're trying to introduce something, or you're identifying a flaw within the organization. Which is more difficult in such a situation? Is it speaking clearly or listening, ensuring that you're listening without becoming defensive? The next attribute of a leader. They need to explain the reason behind important decisions. So you don't just throw changes at people like that. You explain the reason. Not every decision is going to be popular. And not every decision will be popular. And not every decision must be popular. Not every detail can be shared. But people are more likely to respect difficult decisions when they understand the purpose, the process, and the principles behind them. Let me read again. Not every decision can be popular. And not every detail of every decision can be shared. But people are more likely to respect difficult decisions when, as a leader, you ensure that they understand the purpose, the process, and the principles behind that decision and why the institution need to make that decision. So another question for you. Do leaders hold people an explanation for every decision? Yes or no? Do leaders hold the people around them an explanation for every decision that is made? Yes, no, sometimes. Which is it? If you're just joining the live, thank you for joining. Our topic for tonight is the leader everyone wants to follow. Please share the live and tap the screen while you listen. So my question is, do leaders owe people an explanation for every decision? If as a leader, do you think you need to explain every single decision you make? I would say no. I would say no. You're not going to be able to provide an explanation for every single decision you make. Or the ones that will result in change, especially change in practices and changes in operations, people need to know why. The decisions that will impact how people in the organizations operate and function, they need to know why. You may not need to provide all the details, but they need to know the purpose, the process, and the principles behind that decision. So you don't just throw the changes at people. You provide some form of explanation. And as I said, all the details are sometimes not needed. But you give people enough information so they understand that there's a rationale for this decision. So they're more likely to buy into it. And that is where boundaries will come in. Some decisions, due to confidentiality reasons, you can't share everything. Because we have to respect and understand that as leaders, there's a term called responsible transparency. Responsible transparency. Don't overshare. There are certain decisions that are made. You can't overshare everything. But you give people enough. Especially if it will affect how they operate. If it will impact them, give them enough. Let them know the rationale. Let them understand the principles behind that decision. But remember, responsible transparency. Not everything will and can be shared. Effective leaders are consistent. People can adapt to high standards. What exhausts people is unpredictability. When the rules change according to mood, status, friendship, or pressure, trust collapses. So you don't just get up and change something because you want to change it. Those are the things that will frustrate people. Another attribute of a leader that people want to follow. They protect dignity while addressing performance. Correction does not require humiliation. Let me go again. Correction does not require humiliation. You don't want to humiliate people. Accountability does not require disrespect. A strong leader can say, this performance is unacceptable, without communicating you are worthless. So you can tell somebody that the performance you've seen, their performance is unacceptable, without allowing them to feel worthless. Always remember that. And I'm going to talk a little case study now. This one is about the high performer with a bad attitude. So you're going to imagine tonight, you are the leader of any organization you choose in your mind. So you're going to pretend as if you are the leader. Your highest performing team member produces excellent results. However, this person dismisses colleagues, interrupts meetings, refuses feedback, and creates tension. Several team members have privately complained, but the high performer generates results that the organization needs. What do you do as a leader? What do you do? Let me go again. You are the leader for an organization. Your highest performing team member produces excellent results. However, this person dismisses colleagues, interrupts meetings, refuses feedback, and creates tension around the company. Several of the team members have privately complained to you, but this high performer generates results that the organization cannot need. As a leader, what do you do? A. Ignore the behavior because performance matters most. B. Speak privately with the employee, set clear behavioral expectations, and monitor improvement. Or C. Publicly confront the employee to demonstrate that no one is above the rules. What do you do as a leader? Is it A, B, or C? Are you going to ignore the behavior? Or are you going to have that honest, direct conversation with that person? Or are you going to address them in public and let them know who's in charge? Think about those things. Because if you ignore the behavior, you're setting a culture. And pretty soon, you will not be able to control that person. That person will not know any boundary. And that person will drive and demotivate other people in the institution if you ignore it. If you speak to them and set clear behavioral expectations, and then you monitor those changes, that is you holding that high performer accountable. So it's not it, and you're saying to them, it's not about the results you produce. It's about how you communicate, how you make the people around here feel. Everybody who come to work in the day should feel comfortable. And it cannot be about C. You can't publicly embarrass them. Because you will lose their trust. They will shut down on you because you have to keep in mind you need the results. So you can't publicly embarrass them. Because they're going to lose trust in you. And other people in the organizations will be looking on to say, oh, I dare not make any mistake because I don't want to be embarrassed in that way. So we have to be very, very careful how we approach certain situations. For those just joining us, tonight we are discussing the leader everyone wants to follow. Please tap the screen, share the live, and invite a leader, manager, educator, parent, coach, or team member into the discussion. So my question is, what is one leadership behavior you will never tolerate again? Let me hear it. What is one leadership behavior as a person you will never tolerate again? What is one leadership behavior you will never tolerate again? Let me hear it. What one leadership behavior you will not tolerate from any leader? Nobody will belittle me. That's a leadership behavior I will never tolerate. Nobody will belittle me. So what is one leadership behavior you as a person refuse to tolerate in any place, in any organization you work? Nobody? What is one leadership behavior you refuse to tolerate? shouting at me across the floor. So true. And as employers, individuals, as human beings, we have to know what we're going to tolerate. We're not going to be disrespectful, but we're going to ask them politely, are you addressing me? You're not going to tolerate it, because once you tolerate certain behavior, it's going to repeat. It's going to repeat. It's going to repeat. Now, one of the biggest danger to leadership, one of the biggest danger in leadership is wanting to be liked. One of the biggest danger in leadership is wanting to be liked. There is an important warning here. Being a leader people want to follow is not the same as being a leader who needs everyone to like them. Those are different things. Being a leader that everyone wants to follow is different from being a leader who wants everyone in the organization to like them. That's different. It's different. A respected leader may have to make unpopular decisions. A respected leader may have to say no from time to time. A respected leader may have to confront underperformance. A respected leader may have to protect the wider organization rather than satisfy one individual. The goal is never popularity. The goal should always be credibility. So which is more dangerous? A leader who does not care whether anyone likes them, that is A or B. A leader who needs everyone to like them. Which is more dangerous? A leader who does not care whether anyone likes them, or B, a leader who needs everyone to like them. Welcome, DJG. Thank you for joining. So a leader who does not care at all can become detached, harsh, and arrogant. A leader who desperately needs approval can become indecisive, inconsistent, and easily manipulated. Strong leaders requires enough humility to care about people and enough courage to disappoint people when the mission, standards, or well-being of the wider group requires it. Let me read again. Strong leadership requires enough humility to care about people and enough courage to disappoint people when the mission, the standards, or well-being of the wider group requires it. Have you ever seen a leader reverse a correct decision because of pressure from the loudest person in the room? That the leader made a decision and it is a right decision for the organization, but because of the loudmouth person in the room, the leader reversed the decision, and everyone sit and watch that leader reverse the decision to please one person. It's never. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Very dangerous. So if you're just joining our topic for tonight, the leader everyone wants to follow. So I'm going to be making some reference to this book now, The Psychology of Fragility. This book. Fragile systems often produces leaders who become overly defensive, controlling, image conscious, or fearful of challenge. In fragile systems, leaders may interpret questions as you being disrespectful. They may treat disagreement as disloyalty. They may suppress information that threatens the appearance of control. But a leader worth following does not require silence to feel secure. What did I say? A leader worth following does not require silence to feel secure. And I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs from The Psychology of Fragility, page 92. When ego drives reaction. That's it, subheading. When ego drives reaction. Ego wounds demands reassurance. When ego is activated, leaders may begin seeking validation in subtle ways. They may push harder for recognition, reassert authority more visibly, seek affirmation from allies, interpret disagreement as disrespect. These responses are deeply human. Leadership roles often require personal sacrifice. When leaders feel their contributions are being overlooked, the emotional impulse to defend one's status is understandable. But ego-driven reactions can escalate conflict unnecessary. A leader who misinterprets a temporary reduction in influence as a violation of values may respond with unnecessary intensity. Meetings become confrontational, decisions become rigid, allies become uncomfortable, and over time, the leader risks appearing defensive rather than principled. That's just a section from The Psychology of Fragility. Wonderful book. So remember, as a leader, you can't be defensive. You can't allow people to fear you because you're creating a fear-based culture. You can't allow people to fear you because you're promoting organizational silence. People will be afraid to share their expertise. Sometimes you have to release control. Allow people in the organization to drive initiatives. You can't be too caught up in the image. You cannot punish honesty. When people around you give their honest feedback, they must never be punished for it. And when people challenge your decision, you should not feel as if they're being disrespectful. Because people, in any organization, you want to give people a voice. You want to always give people a voice. So here's this from me. A secure leader can hear difficult information without immediately attacking the messenger. A secure leader understands that honest disagreement can strengthen a decision. A secure leader does not need to be the smartest person in the room. No. Fragile leaders create followers who become careful. But strong leaders create followers who become courageous. And you want courageous people around you. You want people who are going to speak up. We're going to challenge your decisions respectfully. We're going to provide constructive feedback. Because they're the ones on the ground. They understand certain context. They are your implementation agents. And if the people who will be implementing whatever changes you're implementing, you're bringing forth, if they're not in agreement, what will that implementation look like? What will buy-in look like? So if they ask questions, if they question a decision, it is your duty to respond. Once they do so, have respectful dialogue. So here's a public challenge. You are leading a meeting. You are leading a meeting. A team member publicly disagrees with your proposal and says, I do not believe this plan will work, and I do not think the team was properly consulted. Everyone becomes silent. As the leader, what do you do? Let me read again. You are the leader. You are leading a staff meeting. A team member publicly disagrees with a proposal. And the team member says, I do not believe this plan will work. And I do not think the team was properly consulted. As a leader for the meeting, what do you do? Do you shut the person down because the challenge was disrespectful? Or do you invite the person to explain their concern, then decide whether to continue publicly or privately? Another thing, I would say my response would be depending on the tone of the employee, depending on the tone and the manner in which it was said. Because people can respectfully disagree. People can respectfully disagree. And people can disagree with you and be disrespectful in the process. So the two matters. And there needs to be a distinction. So you can respectfully disagree with a decision. Nothing is wrong with that. It is how you do it. It is how it is done. So the leader might say, thank you for raising the concern. I want to understand it. Please explain the specific risk you see. We may need to continue part of this discussion privately, but I do not want to dismiss an issue simply because it is uncomfortable. So that kind of response will protect your authority without becoming authoritarian. And the leader in that occasion demonstrates openness while maintaining structure. So here are 7 signs people genuinely trust your leadership. I'm going to give you 7 signs to show that people genuinely trust your leadership. 1, they bring you bad news early. If the people in your organizations bring you bad news early, they trust your leadership. They do. When people trust you, they do not wait until the problem becomes impossible to hide. They're going to bring the bad news to you early. They're going to give you a heads up to say this might happen. People do that when they trust your leadership. When they trust your leadership, they disagree respectfully. They ask for guidance before crises. They will take initiative. They will admit mistakes. They defend the mission when you're absent. When people trust your leadership, when you're absent, they will defend the mission. They remain committed during difficult times. And those are 7 things, 7 signs that the people around you trust your leadership. 1, they bring you bad news early. 2, they disagree respectfully. 3, they ask for guidance before crises. 4, they take initiative. 5, they will admit their mistakes. 6, they defend the mission of the organization even in your absence. And 7, they remain committed even during difficult times. Those are 7 signs that people trust your leadership. So as a leader, if you're a leader, I want to give you a practical framework. And this is called the FOLLOW, FOLLOW framework. So to make tonight's message practical, remember the word follow. Remember the word follow. FOLLOW. F, fairness. Apply standards consistently. Avoid favoritism and selective accountability. O, ownership. Take responsibility for decisions, errors, and outcomes. L is for listen. Listen for understanding, not merely for an opportunity to respond. The next L, lead by example. Lead by example. Do not demand from others what you repeatedly refuse to model. O, openness. Create appropriate channels for questions, feedback, disagreement, and new ideas. And W, worth. Communicate through your actions that people have dignity and value, even when correction is necessary. So keep those in mind. So a good leader must be fair, must take ownership, must listen, lead by example, be open, and show people that they're worth something to the organization. So here's tonight's challenge. Within the next 24 hours, ask one person you lead this question. What is the one thing I could do differently that would help you perform, contribute, or communicate more effectively? Don't argue. Do not try to explain. Do not defend yourself. Listen and thank the person. And then take that away and reflect on the answer. You do not have to agree with every piece of feedback, but you should be mature enough to hear it. The leader everyone wants to follow is not perfect. That leader is credible. That leader is consistent. That leader can be trusted with power. That leader makes people feel seen without lowering standards. That leader can correct without humiliating. That leader can listen without surrendering responsibility. And that leader can make difficult decisions without losing their humility. So before we close, write this in the comments. Trust before title. Always know that. As a leader, trust before title. A title may give you authority. Competence give you credibility. But character determines whether people will follow you when the road becomes difficult. A title give you the authority. Competence give you credibility. People know that you know the job. But your character determines whether people will continue to follow you when the road becomes difficult. So I want to thank you for joining me for Leadership Unscripted tonight. Please follow, share, trust before title. Thank you, Nikki B. It's always trust. Ensure people trust you. Ensure people feel safe around you. Ensure people feel that they can speak around you. And you listen to them. And never be afraid to hold people accountable. Never be afraid to hold people accountable. And as I said, the 7 things that show you as a leader that people want to follow you. 1, they bring you bad news early. They put you on your feet. They tell you what people are saying. If somebody's planning to strike, they tell you, they come and tell you. They don't allow you to be caught off guard. They don't allow that. That's a sign to show that people are actually with you. They disagree with you respectfully. They ask for guidance before crises. Before making a mistake, they ask for guidance. They take initiatives. They see a problem. They see an opportunity to do something. They take their initiative. They bring it to your attention and they go and do it. You don't have to ask them to do everything. When they make a mistake, they admit it. Because they don't fear. They're not operating in fear. When you're absent, they defend the mission. And they remain committed during difficult times. So as I close tonight, I want you to remember, better leaders build better systems. Better leaders develop stronger people. Better leaders create better futures. So my closing question, would you rather follow a leader who always has the answer or a leader who always tells the truth? That's it on Leadership Unscripted tonight. Thank you very much for joining and see you tomorrow night for another riveting title. Thank you everyone, and I do hope you're walking away with one nugget from tonight's presentation. As usual, by the end of the night, tonight's show will be downloaded and will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. So if you've missed it, if you want to share it with somebody, the entire live will be uploaded, the entire show will be uploaded on my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. God bless.